acquisition threshold. So essentially, I can buy a huge prefabricated metal structure, and it's a supply with delivery and installation. You know, you don't put labor costs in there at all. You put delivery and installation, and you could do $250,000 buys all day. Or I could hook you up with a prime vendor on a DLA contract,
right?
And there is no dollar limit essentially. And yeah, you know, it's just one of those little tricks. So it's a word, it's a description thing. You know
I like that. We'll talk about that in a minute. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. Nope, not this. We are actually we're gonna wait. A couple of people are gonna be joining us momentarily.
So you just posted, hey, we're going live. Now you're letting it kind of gather people.
Yep. So no, not even. We're just gonna keep talking. We're live. We've got 11 people watching right now.
Right on.
So we are today. We're having a conversation with Ryan, who's a contract acquisitions NCOIC non-commissioned officer in charge, requirements developer. He's responsible for acquisitions of supplies and services. Ryan, how are you today, brother?
I'm doing outstanding, Eric. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, no problem, man. Thank you. And I know we were actually talking offline about what you do. And can you just kind of like tell people what we're talking about briefly in terms of what you do as far as helping the mission, and how is your job related to a contracting officer's job?
Okay, so essentially, I'm the end user. I'm the customer, right? So I'm the government who generates the requirement. I write the statement of work, performance work statement, statement of objectives. I put together the cost estimates, and then I take that package once approved and I push it to a contract office, and that's where a contract specialist will put it out to bid. And that's basically what you see on sam.beta.gov.
Yeah, right.
What you see.
Okay.
I write those things, and the contract officer just takes it and just puts it out there.
Okay, so when we get these requirements and they're confusing or they don't make any sense, it's your fault?
No, absolutely. It's unquestionably. And the reason behind that is, you know, a well-written statement of work, performance work statement, statement of objectives is actually very technical if you do it right.
Okay.
And that takes a lot of my market research, and basically, especially in a special operations unit, you're still deploying, you're still ripping out, jumping out of planes. You don't have time for that. So it's kind of like an additional duty to write these requirements, and there's nowhere to really learn how to write them. And that's the whole foundation of a contract. And a lot of people believe that, hey, it's a contract officer's job to write my requirement. And it's just not the case, you know, because they have 30 other customers, and, you know, they're not, it's just not their job to clean up my sloppy work.
So I think that's confusing right there, statement. So again, what we see and who we deal with are contracting officers or contracting specialists.
Yeah.
They give us the requirements. Where did it come from?
Me.
Okay, so it comes from you, the customer.
The unit at the line level who actually has the need. So contract officers, they're just there to very emotionlessly take your packet and just do the administrative process of putting out to bid, taking requests for information, passing it back to the customer. I would answer them. And then when the bid closes, like, hey, here you go. Here's your pick of the litter. And then you do the source selection process. Or if you don't specify what type of contract it's going to be, it's going to automatically be lowest price technically acceptable. And that's why most contracts are firm fixed price and lowest price technically acceptable, because me as the customer, I'm supposed to specify, hey, if I want a best value award, you know, I want it firm fixed price instead of, you know, firm target, or fixed price award fee, which of course nobody at the end user level is going to know that.
Okay. So it's the end user that determines the type of contract that it is?
No, absolutely.
I didn't, that's something, Ryan, I didn't know that. I never knew
It's
that.
called an acquisition strategy, right? Or like you're going to work with your contract officer to determine, based off your project, the best contract type to go with. Firm fixed price is least risk to the government. All the risk is on the contractor. Okay, so that is automatically the standard. Lowest price technically acceptable is
Wait,
automatically
repeat
the
that again.
standard.
Firm fixed price is the least risky to the government.
There is no risk to the government. Yeah, it's all on you. You assume that risk. Like whatever you say, or if you run into an obstacle or a bump in the road, me as the government, I don't care. Like you agreed to that price. This is the price you submitted, and take care of it. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. So now, okay, keep going. You were saying the firm fixed price is the least risky to the government, and then there's other types of contracts as well.
So on the spectrum, least risk to the government obviously is what I'm always going to go for, or a contract officer is always going to go for the most part, for a fixed price. On the other total opposite end of the spectrum is time and materials.
Right.
Okay, so like we were discussing for, what was it, Hurricane Katrina? Where'd you go in Puerto Rico?
Oh yeah, we went to the hurricane. I think it was Hurricane Maria or something like that.
It wasn't Katrina. Yeah, exactly.
No, Katrina's
so that is just like
Maria or Ivan or something. Yeah.
We need help immediately. Like you would never do that or bid on it as a firm fixed price because there's so many variables, and that would just be too much risk. And so a lot of, you would never touch that with a 10-foot pole. But if you were to do time and materials, all the risk is on the government, and then you just bill the government when you run into these costs. You know what I mean? And usually they're capped, but still.
But Ryan, again, I'm a small business. How do I get to dictate to the government how to do this? Like, how do I don't get to dictate that. They tell me what the requirements are.
Okay. So in the RFI process, right?
Yep.
They always repost, resolicit when there's new questions, right? And that's to hone in and make the requirement more specific, because me as the government, I'm not a construction expert. I don't run these huge operations, so I don't even think of things like, gasoline consumption or, access to post or any of these things that you think about that are going to somehow affect the job and cost you money.
Right.
So when you do these RFIs, you can put in there and say, hey, no firm fixed price. Let's just try and do this as like firm fixed price incentive, firm target, and or any other different type of contract that more equally shifts the risk, equally. So you can meet in the middle. You know what I mean? You're not assuming all this risk, and then the contract officer, they would obviously take that, give it to the customer. Hey, are you cool with this? Yes or no? They more than likely won't even know what you're talking about. So they'll just be like, yeah, yes, here, I'm comfortable with this. And then, you can go from there. You don't just have to automatically accept firm fixed price.
All right. In the beginning of the conversation, I asked you, I said, Ryan, why did you decide to come on and talk about all this stuff today?
Okay, so again, I've seen so many good technologies, at least from DoD side of the house, war fighting, just great technologies, equipment, gear, software that's just groundbreaking. And it doesn't matter what rank you are, you can be a general, and say, hey, I want that. And it really doesn't matter because he has no authority to enter into an agreement on behalf of the government. Only a warranted contract officer can do that. Okay. So basically, they would task it out to somebody else to, generate the statement of work, performance work statement, statement of objectives to write, who, they're equally as ignorant. They don't even know how to do that. It just kind of gets dropped in their lap, more or less. And, every 2 years, the command switches out. So a lot of these projects, they just die on the vine. And it slows down the development of our entire military. So what is your objective? What do you hope to accomplish? I want to fix that. Okay. Essentially, How do you think we can fix that? Well, first of all, educating, the private industry on here's how stuff actually works. Okay. Like here's how it really is. It's not a contract officer writing this stuff up. Again, because it's not their job. A lot of these requirements are they're poorly written out of ignorance because they're very technical documents and there's nowhere to really learn how to do them. On top of developing them is an additional duty. It's not what you're getting paid for. It's like a burden. It's not your sole job.
Oh, really? Now that's interesting that you said that. So you have your job and then somebody says, hey, write these some requirements to be fulfilled.
Oh, absolutely. Like big projects.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still have to pull jump master duties. I still have to jump out of planes. I got to put people out of planes. Still got to deploy. And so when this gets,
and then in your spare time, write up this multi-million-dollar contract.
Right.
Statement of work. Requirement.
That nobody knows how to write, which is the foundation of the whole contract. That's why a lot of the stuff, the solicitations you see, they don't make sense. You know what I mean? You can just tell, you can tell what they want, the gist of what they want, but because really they don't even know what they want. Because
it's interesting.
Been passed out with writing it. They don't even really want it. It's just an additional duty.
It's funny that you say that, Ryan. I just received today. They sent me a negotiated project, right, at this naval base. Mm-hmm. I called the manufacturer and they says, well, that's not how you do that. So it was a pool filter and they wanted me to take all the sand out of the filter, for the big pools, obviously, right? They're dive pools. So they're
really deep ones. Yes.
Yeah, the deep ones. So they got these huge like pumps, right, that are full of sand, right? We're talking about like 6,000 pounds of sand. Oh, wow. And they go, we want you to take it out and put this number 20 sand back into these filters. So I called the manufacturer. I said, hey, I've got this requirement to take this sand out and put in new sand number 20. And the lady goes, are you crazy? I said, what do you mean? She says, that sand is permanent. It's called permanent media. It's not meant to be taken out ever. Right. You don't take it out. And I go, well, that's what this requirement says. And she goes, and then second of all, you don't put number 20 media in there. It goes number 30 sand goes in there. If you put number 20, you'll damage the whole piping system.
So here, I'm assuming that's for the seals, you know what I mean? Like, and the operator level seals,
Yeah, I don't know who it's for. I don't know who actually uses it, but again, it's just for me, just
more than likely, if it's naval special warfare or whatever, it's for them. But how?
Yeah, it's naval warfare. Yeah, naval NCOIC, Naval Underwater Command, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I know who that is, but still, How would they know as an end user all of that? That's not their profession.
No, I know.
You see what I'm saying? And that's the foundation of the contract. That's what you're bidding on. You know what I mean? And there's
I was concerned because I go, look, I don't want to break this thing. So I sent a letter to the contracting officer specialist, whatever her role is. And I said, look, and I got the manufacturer said, can you send me something in writing attesting to that? And she sent me a letter in writing. I attached that letter with my response. And I said, listen, I'll do whatever you want. But as per the manufacturer, we're not supposed to do this, and we're not supposed to put the sand in here. Mm-hmm. And so this is not the proper way to address the situation. By the way, the manufacturer is also the one who currently has a service contract to service those units. So they have the reports of those units going back 10 years. Like I knew the date it was installed, where it was installed, who did it, But again,
they already have a service contract in place to maintenance these things, and nobody even knows it exists. And when really they could have called up, the
same company who did the maintenance and asked them, how do we fix it?
A little work order, you know what I mean? And they would come out and maintenance it, because they probably think it's broke or something.
So what they did,
really it's not,
Right. That's what she said. She goes, Eric, it can't be broke.
Yeah.
It doesn't break.
Officer, that's not their job to know that. That's the customer's job.
So they canceled that solicitation and sent me a whole new requirement.
Yeah. And
because of what I sent.
Oh my God, that happens, so often, because as the unit line end user, it's just an additional duty. And there's no way unless I've learned so much about so many different industries, from space, intelligence, weapon systems, construction, base life support, because I had to research this stuff. And I've learned these things the hard way, on the ground in real life. And it's not fun. And I'll tell you what, it's not the contract officer's job is to just very emotionlessly take these requirements and go through the process, put them out, because they have 30 other customers they're servicing. They're very understaffed. They're very overworked from what I've seen. And they don't really ever get to see the fruits of their labor, because they're stuck in a contracting office in a cubicle and just, everyone's like, hey, I want this now. It's an emergency. I want it now. It's an emergency. Sole source it. all these different things. And it's really not an emergency. It's just the unit's failure to plan or just ignorance. They just don't know how to do it. There's no one there to teach you. You know what I mean? So, and that's when I got a new appreciation for contract officers. And I wasn't, they were no longer adversaries. I was like, okay, we as the end user, we're actually the problem, and it's not their job to fix our sloppy requirements.
All right. Just let me recap for all the new people coming on board. We are having a conversation with Ryan, who's a contracts acquisition, non-commissioned officer in charge, requirements developer. He's responsible for acquisitions of all supplies and services for his command. And so we're talking about how the requirements are generated that are then competed and awarded contracts. Now, the other thing which is interesting is that how I got to Ryan is he was always commenting on things on my YouTube that people were stating in terms of the government buyers and stuff like that. So he always came on and he had like really intelligent, like high level comments. I'm like, okay, this guy's obviously someone that knows what's going on here because he's not answering like the same standard answer that other people ask, like, which is, oh, beta SAM, login.gov, all this, Dunn's cage crap. He was like, listen, Eric, you can take, and he literally, I'll just read you one of his responses to my YouTube. He's like, cheaper price as per GSA is too low, is not enforceable. GSA is misleading me as a buyer. I can't just hop on GSA and start buying. I have to submit my buy to a contract officer who then puts it out to bid on GSA. It's too slow and too much hassle. I do not like using GSA. I like using GSA eBuy for sources sought and to obtain high quality estimates I can use as independent government research. And I knew right away that people don't even understand what that means.
Oh, so, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And a lot of contractors throw that out. Like, hey man, I'm on a service disabled veteran owned small business. I'm in a hub zone. Oh, we got a GSA schedule. Me as a buyer, that means
nothing. Yeah, they say that all that stuff.
Like, I don't care about any of it at all. Those are all quotas that contracting offices must fulfill. 5% of this, your contracts must go to, minority owned, women owned small businesses, yada, yada, yada. And they do their best to meet those requirements. But to me as a buyer, like, that doesn't help me. That only helps the contract officer. And that's because they are forced to, like, you're gonna fulfill these quotas. You know what I mean?
Okay. But to you could care less.
I can care less.
Right.
So you can get me what I want right now, immediately.
Right. Okay. Now, we were talking also, and we talked about, you said, okay, you guys are putting together the actual requirements, right? You're also putting together the budgets.
No, budget is totally separate.
Okay. So who's putting together these budgets, man?
Well, budgets, you just copy paste from last year.
Oh.
And that's the budget.
Duh.
And everybody just looks at that number and they're just like, okay, that's our budget. And they just go from there. So nobody ever adjusts for inflation or anything like that. It's just like, here's what we've always done. You copy paste from last year. Here's your budget. Nobody even questions it. You just, all right, that's all we get,
Ryan, the problem that I have is that what happens, like, I'm negotiating a project and they're like, oh, Eric, this number is really high. We can't do that. This number is really high. We can't do that. We can't do that. So it's like, how do I fix that? Like, how do we get to the point where, like, okay, you guys don't know what you're doing. It's obvious, right? We're the professionals. How do we meet on that?
So first of all, that's the contract officer doing the negotiating, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So of course they're always going to tell you to sharpen your pencil.
Right.
And a lot of
but they're telling me that the government, what do they call it? The government GPE
cost estimate.
Yeah.
Independent government cost estimate, the IGCE, right? Which, if it's not my profession, how would I know how to accurately? Right. It's almost a worthless document.
Come on, Ryan, don't say that.
How would I know? They use that to justify the acceptable range that a contract is. So if you're too high above that, because I estimated too low, and I just did some very 10 minutes of research because I need this stuff right now, and I submitted it, you're going to appear as an outlier.
I mean, I find that it's happening. It's like, wait a second. And I'm having this happen right now. I'm going through these situations with negotiations, and the number that this guy gave was so ridiculous that I told the lady, I said, are you even like you said, the contracting officer, she's clearly not reading this, or she doesn't know what the hell she's doing. I go,
not her job. It's not her job to read that though.
I go,
just to go through the process.
I said, you're telling me that I can rent this piece of equipment for an entire week with an operator and pay the wage rates that you put inside the contract requirement. You can't even pay the person the rates that you put in the requirement for the amount that you're talking about.
No, that's totally. But I mean, she would shut off right there and be like, this is like, because I have 30 other customers, screaming down my neck, like saying, hey, I need this stuff right now.
So how do we combat that?
Well, essentially, that's why it's so crucial when you do meet with the government. So government cost estimate, your best practices, you call around. First of all, you need to know your requirement, and you need to care about it. But usually it's like a commander or something that says, I will have this, and here, you're tasked with getting it. And there's no specifics, because if you start asking specific details, they're like, you figure that out. I believe in you. Hey, I know you got this. You're not going to let us down. Have a good day. And then these people come to me like, what just happened? You know what I mean? Like, what do you think this guy wants? And you have to somehow interpret the gist of what they want. And again, this is an additional duty. This isn't your job. You're still doing your job and deploying and stuff, right? You have to go out, do the market research, which is, the standard is more or less you get 3 different quotes. And then I always go with the highest quote for my government cost estimate.
Okay.
I'll add like 20% on top of it, and that'll be my independent government cost.
Yeah, but that's you, Ryan. That's not other people, man.
No. They get one quote. They get one quote, and like, here, sole source it. Boom.
And not only do they get one quote, but they may be getting a quote from like the handyman guy. That's
what. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like here's a packet checklist. Like, here, this, independent government cost estimate. Okay, I need to get this to make this go forward. Okay, here, I'll do a phone call, write it down, boom, and then the contract officer will actually use that to determine an acceptable price.
But then the contract officer comes to me like I'm a crook.
Well, that's kind of their job, is to save the taxpayer money.
That's what they say. That's it, Ryan. You said it. They said, "Oh, well, we're here to save the taxpayers money." Right. But your price doesn't even make sense.
Doesn't even make any sense, right?
So you're not saying we've spent more time going back and forth with all of our hours at, everybody's making whatever, $55 an hour, $75. We've spent more time than you've saved the taxpayer.
No, by multiples. I know this so much.
You get what I'm saying, Ryan?
Yeah, I know.
We have 6 people in a room. We've gone to the site. We brought subcontractors. We've already spent $10,000 into this, and you're complaining about $1,000 line item.
Right. Yeah.
And you're saving money.
It's crazy. No, and you could bring that up. You know what I mean? I mean, honest to God, because there's really no defense to that, and I agree 100% with that. 100%. All right, Brian. I never go, hey, lowest price technically acceptable. No, you can hit an RFI back and be like, here, I want to know this, and I suggest changing this to a best value requirement.
Hold on, Ryan. Say that again for everybody to hear this.
You wanna let them.
Hold on, wait. I'm gonna put you on the big screen.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Why not? But essentially, you would, in your RFI process, when they do sources sought or requests for quotes, you would want to say, hey, this is too risky to be a firm fixed price. This should be a fixed price award fee or fixed price. What is it called? Prospective price redetermination or a cost plus incentive fee. I suggest you change it to this type of contract, and it needs to be a best value contract. Okay, so the most amount of services and supplies for your money. Okay, because lowest price technically acceptable is always going to be the standard unless the customer says otherwise. Okay, and nobody knows that. So how am I going to know, to write best value in my requirement if I don't even know what that best value is? I don't even know what LPTA is. You know what I mean? Because, you know, I'm a shooter, I'm a door kicker. Like, how would I know that? I know that like the back of my hand now, but still, that is going to be the standard unless you say otherwise, because they are there to save the government money. When in reality, it doesn't save the government money because, well, sometimes it does, but still, I would say rarely, because I'm going to get the cheapest product there is, realize how garbage it is, and then I'm going to
do it again,
pay for it. I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go with the first, with the actual best value contractor I
Right.
should have gone to begin with. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you actually, by getting the cheapest, it actually costs more. And I've seen that over and over and over.
I've seen, you know, I have people that work in DC that tell me the exact same thing. They go, you know, we went with LPTA and we're stuck with this vendor and we still don't have our solution. So we got to go back and buy it again.
Yes. Right. When in the double. RFQ, the RFI, you know, you send your request for information, or like I said, your sources sought, any of those proposals, that's where you want to push all this stuff up. You know what I mean? And be like, hey, this is not the best contract type for this. This doesn't need to be, this is very high risk. You know, it needs to be time and materials, not firm fixed price, not at all, you know, because you're just not going to get what you want, you know, and then they'll take that, they'll give it to the customer, which is me, and I'll be like, hey, you know, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to know what that is, period. And they're like, all right, great. Awesome. Yeah.
You know what it is, Ryan? You know what's interesting? Oh, by the way, that was really good what you just said. Did everyone hear what he said? He says 9 times out of 10, their customer's not going to know what that is anyway. So they're like, okay, fine. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't hurt anyone out there to try it. Okay. So again, what I'm saying is it doesn't hurt any of us during this process to try and have them change the contract type and when they're setting the requirements before it's been released, right? Obviously before it's released and put on the street, during the sources sought phase, during the market research phase, right? Correct? Okay, so during that phase, if we identify, and like, so Karen Bailey is saying, this is so true in cleaning and landscaping, then it might behoove us to send back to them and say, let's do this other type of contract. Now, Ryan, put this back on you. How do we know what these other types of contracts are, and how do we know which one to propose?
Well, you remember that document I sent you earlier, or I showed you on the
you showed me
camera?
Yep.
I'll send that to you, because that needs to be shared, because there's about, like I said, on the scale, firm fixed price is there's no risk to the government. All risk is on contractor. So the government's obviously going to go with that as the standard. The total opposite end of the spectrum is time and materials. All the risk, you know, whatever you do, the government's going to pay you for it, right? So that's almost no risk on the contractor. Most of it's on the government, you know. That's emergency repairs. Let's see here. Like I said, disaster cleanup. We just need this done. Get boots on the ground now and start doing this, and just invoice us as you go. You know, that's the total opposite end of the spectrum. And then in the very center it's called fixed price, prospective price redetermination, right? So I'll give you this chart to publish, because it's good to know. You know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 major contract types, you know, and it's all about risk, shifting risk. And if you don't push back and shift risk onto the government, then it's going to be a firm fixed price, you know, every time, you know. Whereas if you just say, hey, I suggest this and I'll do it, they'll probably just be like, okay, all right, cool, sounds good.
I like that.
You know,
that's Ryan. That's insightful. It's
better though. It helps everybody. You know what I'm saying? It absolutely.
No. I mean, to me, when I was taught, and this is supposed to be a win-win-win for everybody, right? So win for the contractor, win for the government, and a win for the customer.
Of course.
Right. That's what I was taught when I first came into the world of contracting, that it's supposed to be a win-win-win. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it seems like as though if we don't know, I guarantee the big companies are already doing this.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. But
Okay,
but
all right.
they know what they're doing, like, so they have it down. Like, hey, you'll accept firm fixed price. Like when you know your industry or your service and your trade, you know your subcontractors, you know everything like the back of your hand. I mean, people are just like firm fixed price all day. I don't care. I know what I'm doing. I'm good.
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean?
Gotcha.
But that's
Okay.
not everybody. And there's so many unforeseen variables, especially like something in construction. You know what I mean? There's
Right.
like, hey, if it's wet and the ground freezes and then it thaws and it gets muddy and then it's, I don't know, you hit a gas line. There's so much risk. You know what I mean? That you're assuming and you're just kind of really crossing your fingers. And anything that you did not forecast, which is basically infinite amount of possibilities. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And
Right.
it's on you. You know, because you agreed to that contract.
Now, one of the other things that you talked about, let's go back to the whole GSA thing. What you said about GSA being misleading for the buyer. Can you explain that?
So I don't know if they do it intentionally, but when you get on GSA, all right, when I get on there, I'm like, oh, a GSA schedule, which is just another word for contract. Okay, hey, easily buy this, and this. And me as a government buyer, I'm like, okay, how do I easily buy this, and this? Because essentially on GSA Advantage, I could spend up to $25,000, but anything over that, has to go to a contract. And what they don't tell you, what they do tell you if you really read thoroughly, is all of that stuff, all of the language and the advertisements, it's geared toward contract officers. Because GSA is just another platform like, FedBizOps or, NECO, now it's sam.beta.gov. It's just another platform to actually post bids on. And usually if I put something out, they're going to put it out on GSA and they'll always put it out on
Beta Sam.
Beta Sam, you know
Right.
what I mean? And then you go from there. And I have no control over which one they put it on. That's all the contract officers' preference, contract specialists' preference. So a contract specialist will actually do the administrative part of putting it out to bid, source selection, yada, yada, yada. And then they can't check their own work. So then they pass it off to a contract officer who has the warrant. And the warrant will double check everything that they did against the FAR. And then they're the ones who actually sign off on it. So it involves everybody. You can't just check your own work. There's a specialist who's usually, they have no warrant. They do the administrative process, and then they pass it off onto the contract officer who reviews, checks their work, and then actually enters into an agreement with the government, or on behalf of the government, excuse me.
Okay. When I'm doing my business development, who should I be talking to?
The customer as much as possible.
Okay.
There's a lot of, I know I try to put my information on a lot of my requirements.
Okay.
The contract officer, they'll always go out and black that out usually, or they'll rewrite it and stuff. But sometimes they miss it, you know what I mean? And you can scroll through and you'll see me like, I don't know, sometimes I'll insert it in the middle or whatever, my name and office number. And then, you can contact me directly and ask questions and stuff. But the reason they do that is because, all the questions need to be equal, right? They need to be fair. So you ask a question, they aggregate all these questions, and then boom, resolicitation, and then they'll have like finally the final resolicitation. Once, because I don't know all these questions because I'm just not my profession, so I never foresaw to actually write it in the requirement. And that's why they do that. It refines the requirement in greater and greater and greater detail until you have what's called an acceptable actual requirement, that's honed in, and it kind of eliminates all the stuff that you never thought to even put in the first place. But if you can talk with the customer, I mean, I know if I were on the outside, if I could talk with the government, the actual customer, like I'm getting that contract. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like I got it, because I know how everything works. I know they have no time. I know they don't know how to write the requirement to begin with. So,
and also, the problem, that's so that you can actually address the real problem.
Of course.
And it's interesting that you say that. That's kind of what I felt. I felt like my RFIs felt on deaf ears.
Well, because the contract officers copies it.
Yeah.
pastes it in an email, sends it off. But what if I deploy? I'm the one who wrote it, and I deploy. So now what?
Wow.
It's
Okay.
not their job to chase you down, you know.
Now that brings me back to something you said earlier. You said in the beginning you were that they were your adversary, the contracting officers, but now you look at them differently.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah. At first, when I first fell into my position, when I actually left the line, and I wasn't, you know, basically being a shooter. That's my original job. They were just. I looked at them as the roadblock. I'm like, here, you guys are the problem, 100%. You know, you don't care. You're not doing your job. You're late on everything. You can't just give me what I want, and you know, I just give you money. You know, because you don't understand the FAR and the law. Basically, you have no concept of that, and it's just like, why is this so difficult? You know, what are these people's problems? And then over time, I started to realize, like, oh, okay, they're actually not the problem. It's actually, you know, almost 99% of the time, you know, me, the customer, the end user, because I don't know how to write a requirement. I can't even do a government cost estimate. And I just get one quote and I'm like, here, sole source it. I need it tomorrow. Or, hey, they're already started working and I just need it awarded now so I don't get an unauthorized commitment. You know what I mean? Or something like that. Like this.
You said you put out a requirement for some generators, but you forgot to put in there for the gas.
Yeah, I mean, you would assume that comes with it, right?
Yeah, no. Hey, you got to bring a generator. You got to come with fuel. You order 100 generators, right?
That's on me to know that, to even put it in, you know, much less even knowing how to write statement of work, statement of objectives, the performance work statement. I have to know that industry so inside and out that I know to say, hey, contractors shall provide, you know, fuel for the generators. You know what I mean? But yeah, and these are rough lessons to learn because now you got to do a contract mod, and I mean, there's dollar ceilings. You know, it's called a service contract. God, what is it? It's a SCAP, service contract. I don't even know what it's called right now. I don't know why I'm forgetting. But basically, when I do my government cost estimate, this whole package of stuff, including the statement of work or whatever, it goes into a packet and service contract approval form. So a SCAF. A lot of contract officers call it a SCA, just service contract approval. It's just a permission slip from the command saying, I approve you to use a service contract. This cannot be organically supported by the military. Here, I approve you to do this. And so that dollar amount on there is basically my ceiling. I can't break that because it's basically the reason the ceiling is there is because I don't want to have like a $50,000 contract for staplers or whatever, and then I can modify it and do a multi-billion-dollar contract for aircraft carriers or something like that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So there's a dollar ceiling on there, and you just hope to God that I did my research well enough that it's realistic. It's a realistic dollar ceiling, and basically the government does 1-year contracts. That's all they do. All right, they have a base year. Yep. Plus 4 option years, right?
Right. Yep.
So you have to renew your option years every single year, and that's so the government doesn't get stuck into a bad contract. That's what my company's name is. Base plus 4. Because, that's what you want. You want a base plus 4.
Plus 4. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically just the permission slip you're looking to get, just to have permission to use a service contract, and then that packet goes over to our contracting office, which for us is called the Military Installation Contracting Command, or the MICC. And that's when they accept it. They go through their staffing, legal, JAG, everything. Then they put it out on the street, do all the RFIs, and then you do your source selection process. And that takes a lot of time, especially if I have training coming up in a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you said that you said this is not even part of your job. This is some extra work, and you're not even been paid.
Oh no. So now it is. That is my sole.
Okay, now this is your.
That's how I know so much about this.
Okay, but now it is.
All the battalions underneath me, Like I said, if I want a new weapon or pouch or capability, the line operator is supposed to generate that requirement. While they're deploying, training, jumping, they're supposed to know how to do that and then push that up to the top. You see what I'm saying? And there's this stuff so technical. They just look at it and they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean?
Oh, of course.
Just the template, is 6 pages long. They're like, yeah,
right. No, and I know
technology just gets passed up.
And you know what? I know for myself, right? We have people that, like, even when I'm in construction, there's certain people that like to work with their hands, and there's other people that like to be behind a computer. So, like you said,
yes.
if you're a guy that works with his hands, you don't want to.
No, it's nerd stuff. That's
that's the way we look at it. People look at it like,
way to put it too. Like, that's not like,
I'm not. That's like, not. Yeah.
I'm going to the gym. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree with you. Like, I'm a mechanic.
Contract officers and specialists, they're two totally separate people. They're across posts. They're not even in my unit. Like, they're totally across post, two different breeds of people. You know what I mean? And they're just used to getting sloppy, lazily written, very poorly constructed requirements, and everything's an emergency. Here, we're special operations, so just sole source it. Boom. You know what I mean? And it just doesn't work like that. So that's why everybody gets mad at the contract officer, because you can't just, it's not our decision to sole source something. It's the contract officer's decision to do a sole source. And basically you have to justify why, J&A, why they're the only people on the earth who can fulfill your requirement. And that's basically impossible to do. And it's just like if you know how to write requirements very well, there's no need for a sole source ever. And even a sole source, that's not guaranteed. They put it out there on the street for, I think it's 7 days, and you're just crossing your fingers hoping no one protests it. Because if they do protest it, and they're like, nope, we're fully capable of doing this. In fact, we can even do it better than them and cheaper than them. Here's our past performance. Check it out. Then it's done. That sole source doesn't happen.
Wait, say that again. I don't think people got that.
So a sole source, right? They put it out because they have to put it out. I'm actually kind of probably screwing myself. But,
that's okay. Listen, what I find
in that basket. I'm just saying,
I'm gonna tell you something, Ryan, real quick. What I find, a lot of people listen to the information, they don't actually act on it. So for me, it's okay to share it, because it's a whole nother ball game to actually take this information and do something with it. So even though we tell them, I'm going to tell you guys, hey, go back and during this process, ask them to change the requirements. Most people are going to be like, nah, it looks good to me. Like, I don't want to piss them off, or I don't want to upset the contracting officer. You get me? That's going to be their mentality. They're going to be afraid to do these things. I'm right now looking at something I got on my desk. I'm like, I'm going to send out an email tomorrow and say, hey, maybe we should redo this contract type, because we're negotiating it.
That helps.
We're negotiating it. We're negotiating.
You're not like me, showing up. Hey, you did everything perfectly. You got the generators in place. Oh, but there's no gas.
Right.
Now the whole operation's done. That's you helping me. If you would have mentioned that in the RFIs, I would have been like, oh my God, you just saved me, in this whole.
Yeah, no. And that's kind of what I believe on this pool job. If I had just done what they wanted to, took that good sand out, right, put in a totally different type of sand, it's like putting if you've got a diesel car, putting regular gas in it, or if you got diesel equipment, pouring regular gas in it.
Yeah.
It destroys everything.
That actually happens a lot. Just so you know, in the military, we go through lawnmowers like no other, because people will fill up a gas can with diesel. It's called JP8 in the Army. It's JP8, and then gas is MoGas. They just can't call it gas or diesel, and then people just mix up the containers and just destroy equipment all day, every day.
And that's what they were. That's what we're about to do, is destroy this pool filter system. We're getting ready to destroy a diver's pool. And again, let's think about the impact. We destroy the system. Now they can't use the pool. Now it's infecting the mission.
Did you meet the requirement though?
Of course, I would have met the requirement. No, it wouldn't have been on me. It wouldn't have been
on you at all. In
No,
fact,
they
you probably would have got like a follow-on contractor or a mod to
to
fix
come
it.
fix
You
the
know what I'm
pool.
saying? Yeah,
Fix
even
the
though they
pool.
already had a service contract in place for that in the first place, they're reinventing the wheel.
Right,
That's
right,
like
right.
my first rule is like, hey, don't ever write a new requirement or a contract. Go find someone else's contract. And that's like so unheard of
Uh-huh.
in my world, and I did that out of desperation. I call it the naval special warfare, and I'm like, oh my God, we need help so bad. You have a vendor we want? No, we need this. Like, I need this. Please just let us use your vendor and we'll just reimburse you, with a MIPR. And I don't even have to do my own contract. I'll just use the Navy's and just
Right.
send a MIPR, or it's a military interdepartment purchase request. But I just shoot them the money and reimburse them, and then I get the vendor I want. See what I'm saying? So I don't even need
Oh,
it.
that's nice.
Nobody even knows that. They're just like, okay, yeah, I guess we could do that. That's fine. And, that's my go-to for everything. Use someone else's contract. The government is all the government. Nothing. The government is the government. I don't care if you're Navy, Department of Interior, Department of State. If I see a vendor or a product I want, that's the first thing I ask. Like, do you have, a massive contract with the government by chance? And they're obviously going to know. And they're like, well, yeah, it's so-and-so. I'm like, hey, give me the contract officer representative. Give me their name and their contact information. I'm going to hit them up immediately and be like, hey, I'm so-and-so from here and here, and I need help. And it's not going to be difficult for you. I want to use your vendor, and I'll just MIPR you some money, reimburse you.
Wow. So use their vendor and MIPR you some money.
Mm-hmm.
Vendor.
Now, their contract ceiling, like I said, it's called that SCAP, that service contract approval form. That's the ceiling. That establishes the ceiling for your contract. That's why it's so important. So even though I'm reimbursing them for using their contractor, their services, say it's $1 million base year, it still chews out of their base year. Even though I'm paying for it, giving them money.
Yeah, right. But it takes out of that
still
base.
Eats away at their dollar ceiling. And that's why, like, the Navy has infinite money essentially. So there's no way I'm busting through that. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And they're good. But if it's like the Marine Corps, one of my requirements or training events could just burn their whole entire base +4 down, just boom, And they don't have to let me use it. It's their contract. It's not like
Right.
for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me stop and take some questions real quick. We've got some questions in the chat. Someone said, hold on. The first question, someone said, how much experience do you need to do this? I guess they're asking about your job.
There's no one I know who does what I do. Like I said, I'm a shooter or a warfighter. You know what I mean? I fell into this, and I had to make stuff work to kind of keep things limping along. I learned a lot of tricks along the way out of necessity, because everything was on me, and that's how I learned this. I learned all this and studying the FAR, the DFARs. I went to a couple contingency contracting schools so I can, write requirements, run contracting, set up and run contracting cells, in a contingency environment or a hostile environment. And essentially, yeah, there's no one I've ever met who does what I do. Because in my job pipeline, there's no reason you should be where I'm at,
Makes sense. Someone asked, when should you ask for an extension? Because sometimes the questions come back in the last minute, the answers to the RFI.
Mm-hmm. Always ask. If you need an extension, ask for an extension, 100%. They don't have to give it to you.
Right, but you should ask.
Yeah, you should always ask. Of course.
There you go.
Hey, give me 3 more days to get a quote back from one of my subcontractors. You know what I mean? You always do that.
Okay. Someone asked, who exactly is the customer? Is that the funding office that's paying for the requirement?
Yes, that would be the unit. So, hey, if I'm a special operations unit, right, I write the requirement, and then we have, our unit funds it.
Right.
Multiple different colors of money. Yeah, the contract office does not fund it.
No,
they won't accept your requirement unless you push it over with money. They're not even going to waste their time looking at you if you don't push over a purchase request first.
Okay. They said, can you give an example of a customer who will be, for example, building barracks with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers? Like who would be the customer that's actually building the barracks? That would be the unit?
The customer building barracks. Let's see. That'd be like, I would imagine that'd be TRADOC. Yeah, so let's see here on Fort Benning, Sand Hill. That's like a huge basic training. Yeah, so that would be, well, it still wouldn't matter. It would still go through the Military Installation Contracting Command on Fort
Okay.
Benning, you know, if they wanted that, right?
So it still go through the MIC.
Everything's going through the MIC. You know, if
Okay.
it's over the micro purchase threshold of a government credit card, which is $10,000 for supplies, $2,500 for services, and $25,000 for training. If it goes over any of those thresholds, it's going to a contract. Doesn't matter what rank you are, doesn't matter how high up you are. That is the law. And
Okay.
that's why there's so many card swipes, because nobody knows actually how to do a contract for much less supplies, you know, not even to mention services, because supplies are a lot easier than services.
Okay. Okay. Next question. How does the end user influence procurement decision? So you're the customer. How do you influence a procurement decision?
Well, I write the entire requirement to begin with, so I know what I would want. So I'm also, yeah, I mean, I'm the source selection. I select the source, you know, but I can only select my source based off what the contract officer sends me back, which they black out almost everything about all the vendors. And then I have to say, hey, usually it's just like, are these people technically acceptable? And unless you're very specific in your requirement of what is technically acceptable, there's, if I didn't write it in the requirement, then I can't rule you out on something that I didn't put in there to begin with. And that's where a lot of people get kind of screwed over, because it's like, well, I didn't know to put that in there. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, technically it's a mom and pop job, you know, from deep in the woods, Alabama. So, I mean, technically they can actually do it. Yeah. But I wasn't specific on what certifications, how much past performance. Like I didn't put that in because I didn't know how to put that in, and because it's not my job to do this. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So it's very frustrating, and you can't say no. If they're technically acceptable, then there you go.
But you could, but in the beginning, right? You could make the technical requirements more stringent.
Of course, if I
could help.
If I even knew to do that in the first place.
No, I know, but if, let's say me, I come and I can help you shape those requirements.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What you should do.
Right.
Yeah, write it for me, because it's inherently governmental. But again, if I'm not a construction company, I will take all of, you know, your suggestions to heart. You know, very much so. Hey, I strongly recommend you include this in your requirements so you don't get mom and pa.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know what people over here listening to are doing, but I'm taking notes.
You can't say like, hey, do this, but I highly recommend you do this. Otherwise, you're going to get this, and you're not going to want that, you know?
Okay. I want to say it's an MOS now 51C. I don't know what that means.
That's a 51 Charlie. So I could reclass from an infantryman to a 51 Charlie, which is like a contract officer, right?
Okay. I don't know what that means still, but okay.
I mean, they didn't ask a question. Change my job to a contract officer.
Oh,
it doesn't matter, because even if I was a contract officer, I'm not writing your requirement for you.
Yeah, that's true.
I will take it and emotionlessly put it through the process. And then I'll let the FAR dictate everything I do, because you don't think your own thoughts as a contract officer. Like, the FAR does that for you. That is your decision-making process. Any situation you could possibly imagine, they have a step, you know what I mean? If it's yes or no, go here. If it's yes, go here. You know what I mean? And that's a liability thing, because the government will back them in court. They won't back me as a buyer, but the government will back a contract officer, warranty contract officer, in court. You see what I'm saying? And but they'll also hold them accountable if they do anything shady. So they're the ones taking all the risk. So I could try to push the shadiest stuff through. And I mean, I've seen this happen. Like, it's just the craziest stuff. And it doesn't matter. It's not on me. I didn't know that. You know, I'm a shooter. I didn't know I couldn't do that. That's your job, right? To know that. And so that's another thing, is these contract officers, not only are they understaffed and overworked, and they get sloppy requirements, and everyone's usually mad at them. They don't get to see the fruits of their labor, but not on top of all that, you're taking all the risk. You're going to jail. You know what I mean? You're the one on the line. It's not me.
Right. No, that's true. Very good point. Okay. Someone asked, if you have a contract with a prime and another government client wants to add a project to that contract, can you do a mod to the contract for that work and still be compensated?
That's what I do. I mean, I call it piggybacking, but you know what I mean? If I have a vendor I'm like, do you have a contract with the government, or are you a sub under a prime? I'm like, yeah, here, we're a sub, and here's the prime. I'm like, all right, give me the prime's information right now. Boom. Then I'll hit up the prime. I'm so-and-so from, this unit, and I want to use your vendor. Can you please, are you okay with that, first of all? Because they don't have to let you. And then if you are okay with that, which usually of course they would, they're still they get a 7% pass-through fee, and that's actually pretty low. So why wouldn't they? Their job is to max out their dollar ceiling for their contract, right?
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. Here's the contract officer representative's name, right? That's the guy in the government responsible for overseeing the contract.
Okay.
Right, and making sure the government gets their money's worth. So I would call the contract officer representative, which I'm one of those too, and I would say, hey, buddy, I'm so-and-so from this unit. Do you mind if we use your contract and just for you money? It's very easy. There's no work. And usually they're just like, yeah, that's cool. It's fine.
Okay, cool.
I'm sorry here. Like they said, do they have to do a mod? Usually they cut a task order.
Right.
It's just another task order. It's just like the person who owns the contract to begin with says, if it's Army, they're Navy. It's just like them cutting another task order, another job for the Navy. It's just, I'm receiving the services. And then
I got you.
Them on the back.
I got you.
So there's no.
No, I'm having conversations now with the Navy, and they're talking about, they're gonna, like, when they put together the IDIQ, they're gonna put the AOC, right, which includes another like naval station or naval port that's included. We could pull task orders for either one. They're gonna put that in.
What's the AOC?
I don't know what it stands for, but they said AOC, so I thought it was like area of command or area. He never put it in there, but basically
they're roping them in, saying, hey.
Yes, they're roping them in, saying, hey, they can pull from this task order. We could pull from this task order, right? Because we're all in close proximity, which is kind of what you're talking about. But they're gonna put it into the actual package in the beginning at the offset.
Right. Which makes sense. You know what I mean?
Because they already have this in mind.
Catch them early on in the process and be like, oh, you're working on something that we need too. Is there any way you can just rope us in? We'll both fund it. I'm talking like after the contract's already like boom.
No, I know that's the question.
And I'm just asking like, hey, buddy, please help us out, and I'll just reverse you. It's just a technique. But yeah, both are good.
Right. That was the question I was asked. Now, there's another thing that you mentioned here before, which was many agencies misuse the word construction. If a facility already exists, you can reach out to the customer, suggest they rename a delivery installation of equipment and routine maintenance services to avoid the military construction FSRM route that takes forever. Right. Talk to it. Explain.
Well, I want to range facility update.
Okay.
Right? And I just want brand new target systems, new bays.
It's funny, I worked on a gun range before, a CADM.
I'm just saying, that probably was a government construction project that an engineer, you gotta get you gotta rope the engineers in. Right. It's a whole different color of money that's approved by Congress. Any construction, you know what I mean? And it's just such a process and a pain when you can just say, hey, delivery and installation and upgrade of, new equipment. I could buy it on Unison Global. I can buy $250,000 of all new equipment and stuff, and anything other than that, just upgrade it. It could be pouring, whatever.
Ryan? I went through that. Mm-hmm. When I built my hangars, they called it a furniture contract. like what we were talking about beforehand. I was like, what do you mean furniture? They go, no, it's like just like a furniture contract. When you deliver the thing, then we'll pay you. So it's what you said. It was like a supply type contract, whatever you called it.
Which is so easy. Like
Dude,
there's
it was
services
not
and
construction.
supplies, right?
It was nothing. It was no construction.
It's
So
okay. It's okay. We can just leave it at that, man. So you really don't want to burn that down. I'll be honest with you.
wow.
Leave that, and just that is just a thing that, man, I'll tell you what. And usually furniture and chairs, office furniture is a mandatory source. You got to go to Unicore for this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's furniture. But a work surface is not furniture.
Interesting.
It's a
Okay.
work surface. It's a work surface. You see what I'm saying? It's not a desk.
Let's see. Okay, let me see. So you're saying you find the funding offices, ask about upcoming projects that they may be completing soon, and recommend requirements for products that I could fulfill before they start the contracting.
Essentially, usually like me as the government, I have to reach out to you for a quote. If I reach out to you, hey, here's the gist of what I want to do, and I want this. I want an airplane hangar. You know what I mean? And that's all I know, because that's all I know about the industry, right? But if you know airplane hangars inside and out, you're gonna be like, okay, I know what you want. Here's what you should actually ask for. Like these salient characteristics, you're going to want this. Your contractor must have, at a minimum, the following certifications. They must have, at a minimum, the following past performance, yada, yada. And this is just, you don't have to use this. You can throw it away, but I just suggest you use it because it's going to ensure you get the highest quality product at the lowest price. And you're not just going to get a ma and pa company. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Another thing is unsolicited proposals. So I just told this company, they're deployed resources. They're a great company. But this whole coronavirus thing, I was like, hey, you should start right off the bat, come up with a concept or a minimum viable product of like a containment, hospital that has the proper HVAC, the filters and everything to, an expeditionary hospital that can be rapidly thrown up and used as containment for coronavirus victims. Because like me as the customer, or if it's Department of Interior or Homeland Security, I guess would be responsible, or FEMA would be responsible for coming up with that requirement, right? But they don't know how to write that requirement. So if you just say, hey, here's what we see happening on, going on in the world, shoot that to all the contract officers. Here's a solution for what you're gonna be hearing from the line units about this, but basically when we're already infected and it's already too late. So here's already the solution right here. I'm just saying, and just kind of leave that there. And then now when the customer comes to the contract office, like, oh, boom, here we already got somebody. Oh, it's an emergency. It's a contingency operation within the United States. Chemical, biological. And that's a whole other subsection of the FAR where they can just start, sole sourcing, getting you on contract immediately because you already have a minimum viable product. You're giving them the solution right off the bat before, I even can figure out what the problem is and then figure out how to fight it. And then you figure out where to even send it. And you know what I mean? You're just like, here, let me help you out.
That's sweet. Because it's funny that you said that. I just saw on the news that Senate just put $8.3 billion to the table to approve for solving the coronavirus problem. Not solving it, but addressing the problem. We don't have enough vaccines. We don't have enough testing equipment. Not vaccine, but we don't have enough testing kits to test even 1 million people right now. We don't have it. Like you said, we don't have the funding. We don't have the medicine. We don't have anything.
Nothing. You know what I mean? So, and even as construction, you could be like, hey, the best thing to do is, containment and isolation, right? So,
here's a facility.
I build walls. Here, we can stop infected people from coming into our country. Boom, here's a solution. This helps the coronavirus. It's within the scope of these funds. You know what I mean? And boom, there you go. And like, boom, you got it done. You know what I mean? That's just one instance. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm trying to think of like.
And we actually have people in our group that are working on that now for the
No,
government.
no, that's good. They should be because, like I
Yeah.
said, field hospitals, the containerized, we call them connexes, but they're the containers that are shipping containers. They go on the
Right.
back of trucks.
Right.
Those I suggest, hey, make refrigerator one of those for bodies. Like morgues, so they can just start chucking the dead in there, zipping them up, refrigerating them, and then trucking them off in connexes. In mass.
Right.
And you just pick up the connex, boom, on the back of the truck, take off, drop an empty one in its place, and you start doing like rapid transport for the dead. And I suggested one other thing in that. Oh, decontamination. Yeah, Connex, containerized decontamination facilities that you could drop on the outside of the hospital that blew you off. It's pressurized, it sanitizes you. You can put your clothes in a bag, put on fresh clothes, walk out the other end, and you're decontaminated. You know what I mean?
I love it.
All these concepts that you already know, just a little bit of thought and imagination, and you could just do a minimum viable product and just start shooting them out to FEMA, Department of Interior,
Right.
Homeland Security, CDC, whatever. They're all the government, and they all still, they all need contracts to make that happen. So you're just getting ahead of the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Way ahead of the government because it's so slow.
Right.
And it's easy to do that.
Wow. No, I like that. I like that. Hold on. Okay, going back to that question that we had about trying to. Oh yeah, we answered that question. Okay, hold on. Someone says, if you're on GSA, do you have to abide by the posted price? I don't know if you know the answer to that. That's not really your line of work.
GSA, do I have to abide by the posted price? So
that's not really yours.
What I know from a GSA schedule is in order to get a schedule, they negotiate your price. It's already pre-negotiated. And you kind of sign an agreement saying, hey, you are not going to sell anybody. You're not going to sell your product to anybody, product or service, anybody cheaper than what you're selling it to us for.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And if
Right.
you do, you have to reimburse the government. If you do and you get caught, you have to reimburse the government. Because you agreed to us that, hey, in order to have this schedule, this is your lowest price you could possibly, give to us. How enforceable that is, I mean, I don't know. I'd probably risk it because who would even know to even report you?
No, it's interesting. It's funny that they say that. Remember the person that came on from Cheryl Manufacturing, who
Yes.
was saying that the people were claiming they were made in USA products and they were made in China.
Yeah, Margaret. Yeah.
And the GSA literally said it's not our responsibility to do compliance of this. We are just a marketplace where people are allowed to come on and sell their products. We don't ensure compliance. We don't regulate it. We don't. So I actually have someone that came to me and said, well, we've got a solution for GSA to help them with compliance. I said, but it seems like to me, they want to, what's that word? They basically want to stay away from even being involved with compliance so that they're not legally contractually, tied to.
You don't want that liability, yeah.
Yeah, they don't want that. So they're like, I'm like, dude, GSA doesn't want that because they're responsible for making sure people comply. It's just easier to say, we're not responsible for that, and that's part of the agreements that we sign.
And Cheryl, I helped her out as much as I possibly could, and I explained all this stuff to her.
Okay.
What a mess it was. And essentially, she had a Navy ship who wanted to buy silverware, but they couldn't go above $25,000 because on GSA Advantage, because that's the only way they knew how to buy. You know what I mean? And I'm like, here, you need to do this. Well, first of all, when I actually dove into her website, she had NSN numbers. You know what I mean? Like that takes an act of God.
Oh, nobody knows.
So I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you realize like you already have everything you need? So when people ask you how to buy, you need to put something called, hey, government buyers, click here. Think, okay, use these NSN numbers and put them in your buying system in order. There you go. That's their only option. There are no other options. GSA Advantage, whatever. No, you're gonna use the NSN number. You do all the thinking for them, because now I don't have to do a contract. I don't have to put any supply contract out for bid on Unison Global or DLA TLS contract. I don't have to do that because it's all I can order it through the Army system, and it's just a click, boom, and that means there's a whole there's a whole group of people who are responsible for managing a running stock of her product. So it's a pull system. So when the Navy orders it, boom, well, now they're not at their stock anymore. So they have to reach out to her and replenish that stock. I'm just like, you don't even have any problems. You know what I mean? Like your problem is solved. You just got to show the government how to just point them toward it. Order it through your own system because you have an NSN number and you're good. And there's no dollar limit. Unison Global, used to be called FedBid. I can only buy $250,000 and up for supplies, or $250,000 and below for supplies. You can get services in there, like I said, instead of writing all these labor costs, foreman, manager, shipping, whatever, just put delivery, setup, installation, delivery, assembly, installation, cleanup. And so now that one little line item it's basically ancillary to a supply. So it's still a supply contract. You start throwing labor rates in there and all these different positions, now that's a service. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But I don't want your services. Your services are just tied to the supply, because in the end, I want the supply. I want delivery and installation of an airplane hangar. So when you're gone, what I'm left with, which is an airplane hangar, that's a supply.
No, it makes sense.
So I'm like, hey, redo your quote, get rid of everything labor, and put delivery and installation. That's it.
Someone said plausible deniability. When we go back to the GSA thing. Yeah, I taught the GSA thing. I like that. That's good.
But there's no way to enforce it. There really isn't. And that's why usually GSA, GSA scheduled labor rates.
Yep.
You can look those up and print them out. You know what I mean? So for a subject matter expert level 4, like $140 per hour, like that's a good way to even quote a job. Just go up GSA's own scheduled labor rates, because they're going to be way higher than what you would ever charge. You know what I mean?
Right. Makes sense. I'm gonna.
That's why GSA is not the cheapest. They're what I found, and from other contract officers, they're more expensive.
Oh, I agree 200%. I agree 200%. They're more expensive. That's what they say, but I outbid someone who had the guy who I beat on the hangars was on a GSA schedule, and I still beat him on price.
Right.
So I'm just setting up another connection for you. I just thought about it while I was going. Yeah, no, I beat them on price totally, and they were on a GSA schedule, and they actually protested the job because the project was to you were supposed to use theirs as like it was their hangar or whatever system was the one that was proposed, but I offered something that was equal or better.
And that's key. So, if I put something out on Unison Global, and I want, so here, I'll give you a real world thing. The DJI Mavic drones, right? When I go on Unison Global, it's LPTA that's the standard. There's no exception to that. I have to do lowest price technically acceptable. So then you put a blurb in there saying any proposed product, it's not that's not what I'm asking for. It's any proposed product that is not, what I'm asking for must be equal to or greater than in capabilities, make a material, yada yada yada, to be to be acceptable, basically.
Right.
So you can come in way cheaper, but then hey, your battery life is half of a DJI Mavic. The distance they can fly away is half of a DJI Mavic.
Right.
So you're just like, hey, permission to bypass vendors A, B, and C due to them not meeting my requirement. And then contract officers like, yeah, permission to bypass. Boom. Here's the next technically acceptable person, which is obviously going to be a DJI Mavic, because there is nothing better than them. You know what I mean?
Right.
So even though they're low, their price is lower, I can still bypass them.
Right.
And as a if you're selling products to the government, you can still say, hey, so you don't get Chinese junk. First of all, you can create your own little blurb. Product must be American made. Must be made of these types of materials, must be flame retardant up until like, this level 3. It must be this type of stitching and weaving, just a little paragraph. So, and when I attach that to my buy, anybody can come in lower than me, but none of them are going to meet those specifications.
Right. Oh yeah.
So I get permission to bypass like 10 people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then anybody I do get, even if it's not the vendor I wanted, they have an equal to or even greater than, which does happen sometimes. They have a better product for cheaper. So you still win either way. And that's all the requirement. You know what I mean?
Nice. Someone says, if I have an IDIQ, how do I bypass the subcontracting rule by doing the 7% pass through? I don't know what none of that means.
Okay, so essentially he has. Okay, so
and again, if you don't know the answer, just say, look, I don't know.
Is he a sub or is he the prime?
Okay, Marlon, are you a sub or a prime? All right, we'll find out. There's a little delay between when it gets to YouTube to here, so it's a lag in it. We'll move on and we'll get till he waits for the answer. Someone says, would a training course be a supply on GSA?
I'd have to get really crafty with that. I've done that before. Oh, on GSA?
Right, on GSA.
Okay, no, you're not going to slide that through there. But hey, on a government credit card, $25,000 for training. So if it's $24,999, that's a training card swipe. I'm just saying.
Hear that,
commercial off the shelf, which means you just need to have a little website and offer it to everybody. So even if it's JCPenney's, if they really want your course, they can technically buy it. But would they need that? Well, it really doesn't matter. It just means it's available to everybody, and you can do $25,000 card swipes all day. And that's how I plan on selling my services to the government, helping them develop requirements.
Yep.
Training card swipes.
Training card swipes. Okay. Now, again, let's say she did want to do the training card swipes. Who should she start talking to?
Well, obviously, if she does offer training, then she probably knows a targeted audience in the government who would need that training.
Gotcha.
She would reach out to them and be like, here, pay with a credit card. I'll be there, next week. You know what I mean? Because everyone knows the government training card process.
Yep. All right. You hear that, Lynetta? Okay. Going back to the question of the IDIQ, he's a prime.
Okay, IDIQ.
So the question was, how do you?
He's trying to avoid what though?
He says, how do I bypass the subcontracting rule?
All right, the subcontracting rule. What's the rule specifically?
Yeah,
he said something about 7% pass through. Like,
yeah,
that was just a number I threw out. Like, usually, if you're the prime and you're coming to me as a vendor, I'm not going to charge the vendor anything. Sometimes they do, but as the, they would just basically add on 7% as a prime pass through fee to charge the government. It's like, I'm the middleman. I have the contract. You don't have the contract. You're a sub. You know what I mean? So, but it helps me as the government, right? Because I don't want to do my own contract. I just want your sub. So here, I'll throw on another 7% since you're the prime, and I'll gladly pay it. So I don't have to go through the whole rigmarole, that whole long, lengthy process. I can just get the training from the vendor I want, and yeah, that's absolutely worth 7% add-on. Like that's worth it all day. Okay,
I hope that answers his question, Marlon. If not, just chat back, and we're gonna have a couple more minutes before we go. Keep him on. Something that you wrote, a comment that you made with regard to Jennifer Ambar, and you said she liked the podcast that I did with her, and you said people, if you can read between the lines. Do you remember that and what that meant?
Well, just like the language and how she talked about, I believe it was capture management.
Yep, she does capture management.
There's a lot of stuff that that I'm figuring out that I know how to. Basically, if you have a contract with the government, you have that dollar ceiling, right? And if you're not burning through that dollar ceiling, like, that's what you want to do. If you have a gap, like you didn't meet your dollar threshold for that year, you could have had another 2 million, you didn't even meet it. Like, that's the wrong answer. So that's where you go in and you help these people expand their services and kind of crawl through and grow on, or hey, get other government agencies who don't know how to do a contract, but they still want this agency's contractor. So you could reach out to them and be like, hey, this government agency over here already has your vendor on contract, they would probably be, be more than likely they'd like to help you, and then you just got to reach out to this COR and say, hey, can we help you? Or can we use your vendor? And then we'll MIP for you money. And then you just, boom, you start burning through that dollar ceiling. Because it's not, I don't think it's a contractor's job to monitor like the dollar ceiling of their contract. I would just keep accepting orders until I burn through it, until a contract officer actually stopped you and said, hey, you can't do it anymore. We got to recompete or whatever. Because I could burn through 4 option years worth of
money
in 1 year. You know what I mean? If I really wanted
Ryan, you a bad boy.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
I don't. First of all, hold on. Does everyone out there understand what Ryan just said? He said he could burn through 4 option years. So again, when you're looking at these, at least for me in construction, right? When we have a base plus 4, we're talking about millions of dollars here. And he said I could just burn through all 4 years of that and his work. So this information, again, I know it's more advanced level stuff. A lot of people out here just, you're getting started. But for those advanced folks that have some contracts or have some success, like these are really good tips that he's sharing with us of how to further that success, right? And then at the same time, help everyone, right, accomplish their mission, right, which is the ultimate goal. Because what we're not, I think what Ryan said, where the disconnect is that we think that like they're trying to beat us down or that they're like bad people, but really a lot of times it's the person, the customer just doesn't really know or understand the requirements and how they're supposed to be met. And so they really need guidance. So, coming from me, I think that you should treat them like what they'd say, how everyone needs a hug. Instead of being mad at them, just pretend like they have I need a hug sign on their forehead, right? And then say, you know what? I got it. I really thought that you like hated me and that you were my adversary, but really, I realized you just need a hug.
Yeah, because they just don't know what they're doing, and it's not like that's even their job. They get this stuff dropped in their lap. Here, make this requirement, make it happen, and it's a lot of stress. And they any help you give them, they would be like, yeah, great, awesome, thank you, I'll totally add that in, or or whatnot, because they just don't know.
And again, so for the people that are like my audience and who's watching this, I'm hoping that we can help shape people's minds differently so that that way you can see it that way, and we can start doing some of these techniques and then find out that, guess what? You know what? This works. Because I'll tell you, and I was talking to Ryan offline about this just before we got on, this is essentially what Maria's doing. She's helping put the requirements together for the contracts that we ultimately get. And you know what's the beautiful thing? There's no change orders. There's no renegotiable price. They get exactly what they wanted because we helped put it together. Whereas when they're sending it to us, like what I told you, the other example from the pool job, we were about to screw up the entire government's pool system. Right?
You didn't help them put it together because that's inherently governmental. You just gave your professional opinion on what you would do.
Yes. Yeah. And I always say, and that's a very good point. No, you're right. Yeah, no, he's right. So we came in, but we came in on the front end and gave our professional opinion before anything, bad could have potentially happened.
That's key, though. That's key. Is the front end. Before it ever gets to a contract officer. That's where you have more control than you know. You know what I'm saying? And that's not a bad thing, because most people, like, I have never run into, and I talk to a lot of very high level, contracting companies and program managers and whatnot. And there's none of them who have ever been like shady or anything. You know what I mean? They're very professional and upfront with you. And no one's ever even tried to sway my decision or whatever, or even hint toward that. They're really, all stand-up dudes.
Well, I think because at the end of the day, we realize that, and again, at least in my industry, we've been down the road enough times with incidents happening that we're like, because again, when you say, look, if we wait till this breaks, it's going to have an even greater impact.
It's more business, but at the same time, you'll be more reputable. They're going to want to go with you if you do a successful project. there's ways you can just capture management. I imagine you can capture them as a customer, and they're just
Right.
going to call you, and you can just keep doing the same technique over and
Right.
over because they know you're going to do it right the first time. You know what I mean? And it's key. You know.
Nice. Yeah. So there's no way that we can go out and find who's actually the ones putting these requirements together. There's no way we can go find them. Like I have like
when I read a solicitation, I know just from the inside, I can pretty much narrow it down to who wants it, you know, just based on how, you know, poorly it's written, or hey, I get the gist of what they're asking for. And if you ever need help with any of this, or anybody needs help with this, you know, you can forward me the link to the solicitation. I'll hop on there and be like, okay, I know what they actually mean. You know what I mean? I can help you out, you know, so you can send the RFIs, you can do all of this. But a big thing is, you know, if you meet with the government and you're giving them quotes or whatever, there's really no reason you shouldn't win that contract. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you know, I mean, I know, at least for me, if I met with the government, if I were a contractor, like they're mine, like I already know from the get-go. But a lot of stuff is, you know, what you put on your website, you know, like, hey, are you a government buyer? Click here, boom.
Right.
And you just lay out the process for them. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of different ways to do that, because all they're doing is looking for the easiest, you know, best solution as fast as possible. And so you can, there's just a lot you can do with that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different methods.
Okay, but again, now I'm in this negotiation. I realize that the government's price it's way too low.
Mm-hmm.
How do I handle that? Like, how do I get back to, okay, because, you know, I put, like, you know, we're talking about an 8A project. I put all of my numbers and everything on the table, and they go, oh, it's still too expensive. But they didn't put their numbers on the table for us to look at.
No, because
so how do we say, okay, well, maybe you guys are the ones missing something?
No, I mean, just how you said it. I mean, like, hey, I highly suggest look at my cost breakdown. Your independent government cost estimate is, you know, either wrong or it's, you know, missing very key aspects, and this needs to be resolicited. So I suggest you add in the following things on your next solicitation. You know, hey, what type, what size, what, you know, sand, or hey, what's the root problem? What are you trying to fix in the first place? You know, that probably like they're just asking for a solution, and they're assuming they know the problem. When to a professional who is in that business, they're like, no, that's not even the problem. You know what I mean? It's like your pipes or something totally unrelated to a part. And honestly, from what it sounds like to me, if it's just a pool filter, you know, that'd be a supply all day with delivery and installation.
Well, they're called filters, but they're really those big tanks that hold the sand in them. But they're called pool filters. It's still, no, I agree with you. But this is another project that I'm working on, and this one is with the national parks, and they're saying like we're at triple what their estimate is, and I'm like, that can't be. Like, it can't be, because we've got the vendors that are in the local area that are the people that are going to do this, and it's high risk because we're talking about national parks, so it's a historic, right? So everything is historic, and you can't. They're not even replaceable. So if you damage anything, it's unreplaceable.
And it's firm fixed price.
Yeah, it's probably firm fixed price.
Yeah. So then, yeah, I would bring that up immediately. Like, look, your government cost estimate and market research is wrong, because it's not the contract officer's job to do that, because they're servicing, you know, 20 or 30 other customers. It's not their job to go in and double check all of your work, you know, not by any means. So you really would need to bring that up, and you're helping them, you know, by doing that. You're helping them.
All right, but
and I suggest to, due to the amount of risk on the contract, that this not be a firm fixed price, but, you know, this is like a fixed price award fee, you know, or fixed price incentive firm target, you know, and that way it shifts more risk off of you. And that's fair. And if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. But if you do ask, they'll probably be like, yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Ryan, I need that document like right away.
I know. I got you, man.
Shoot me an email, because you know what? I don't know about everybody else. I'm working on this stuff like mañana.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working on stuff my own, man. I'm
I
like,
got you, man. I got you.
because this job, it's a big job and we want to do the job, but I mean, I'm not going to take the risk. I'm not, and it's like, um, it's replacing these stones at like a historic monument. And dude, the stone stepways, they're 10 feet long. They're like, they're monstrous. Like the stones that you see in Washington, D.C., those buildings that I forgot what they call those stones. They're like these big,
Like
thick
those
stones.
granite,
Like
solid,
granite.
like
Yeah,
look
the
like a
granite one.
megalith.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, man. That's just the
You got,
equipment alone. I imagine. I guess you could kind of forklift it up, inject airbags underneath there, and pump it somehow.
but
Or
I mean, but if you break it, if you drop it and break it, you can't buy that. Like it would cost more to
yeah.
buy them than the whole contract is worth.
Really? Oh
Of
yeah. See,
course.
that's a lot of risk. So yeah, I would actually. Let's see here. Yeah, man. Here you need this document because this is what actually trains contract officers on how to, on contract negotiations and comparison of major contract types from lowest risk to the government to highest risk to the government, and it gives you examples on when to use certain types of contracts, and it will absolutely tell you. So here, let's for this whole other end of the spectrum, just for time and materials being the most risky, right?
Yep.
Highly uncertain and speculative labor hours, labor mix, and or material requirements, other things necessary to perform the contract. The government assumes the risks inherent in the contract, benefiting if the actual cost is lower than the expected cost, or losing if the work cannot be completed within the expected cost of performance, right? So essentially,
I mean, I'm at the mindset of, okay, because listen, the guys I deal with are older, so they're like, look, I tell you what, if you can do it for that price, we'll pay you to do it.
yeah,
They can't.
yeah.
If you can do it for that price, then I tell you what, we'll pay you. We'll sit back and watch you guys try to get it done for that price. It ain't
No,
gonna happen.
absolutely. And I mean, a lot of it's just, yeah, I mean, like you said, over guys, like,
It's
well, I
nonsense.
reckon we can do it for about this, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, okay,
Okay.
but that's too much risk. And that's something to bring up. Like, hey, these are historical monuments that are actually, there's no dollar limit or there's no cost you could actually assign to this thing. There's no way to evaluate it. So
Right.
therefore, instead of a firm fixed price, which is lowest risk to you, but you're not going to get the quality and the assurance of, preserving these historical monuments that you're saying these are very, valuable. That's why they're a historical monument, right? So you wouldn't do firm fixed price. Nobody would do lowest price, technically acceptable firm fixed price for something like that. You got to give a little bit to the contractor when you're doing something like that, if it really means anything to you. But again, the customer asking for that to be done doesn't know any of what I just said.
Right. By the way, for everyone that's joining us now, we're having a conversation with Ryan, contracts acquisition, non-commissioned officer in charge. He's a requirements developer responsible for acquisitions of supplies and services. And so again, he came on today to share the knowledge he has in hopes that we can help improve the process. All of us small businesses out there, entrepreneurs, that we can help them create a win-win-win situation for not just for ourselves, but for the government, and then ultimately the end customer who has the needs. What he's sharing is the fact that a lot of times what the end statement of work or the scope of the solicitation that we're getting is not coming from the actual contracting officers. Their job is to simply buy it on behalf of a customer, and a lot of times they're overworked and they have 30 plus customers that they're dealing with. And so they are emotionless in their decision-making ability, right? Is that fair, Ryan?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so he wants to just kind of educate everyone out there so that we know we have some other routes in which we can take in terms of approaching various scenarios that we encounter out here in the world of federal procurement.
Exactly. You
Okay.
hit the nail on the head, man.
Yeah, man. I've been listening
Again,
to
I mean, hey, pass out my email, because if anybody has questions or if you have a service or a supply you're trying to sell, I mean, I can almost guarantee you I can show you the best method to go about doing that.
Okay.
I mean?
Yeah. Well,
or even write a statement of work or a requirement statement of objective performance work statement.
Wait, hold on. Okay, someone asked that question. I think that was, hold on. Someone asked that question, actually. Now that you brought it up. I think it was Mo. Hold on. Any advice that you can share when pricing a proposal, resources that you can suggest for pricing purposes?
For pricing?
Yeah.
I
Wait,
mean,
hold on
I
one
would
second.
say, hey,
Wait, by the way, there's 44 people watching and only 18 likes. If you like it, make sure to give us a thumbs up, please.
hit the
I got to
thumbs
do
up,
that.
smash the subscribe button.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Smash
always do that.
subscribe.
You bring it up, I'm like, oh yeah, here, I'll do that.
Yeah, like you guys, everybody forgets to like it, right? And then at the same time, they're not subscribed. And you know what? And it's not that, like you said, it's not that you don't want to, you just forget it.
Yeah.
And I had an event in Dallas last weekend, and one of my podcast guests came to see me. And I was trying to get to my 10,000 subscribers. And so Maria's going around the room and was like, okay, are you subscribed? Are you subscribed? He's like, yeah. And then we do the QR thing. He's like, wait, I thought I was subscribed. I watch all your videos. I watch your content.
Yeah.
But he never actually clicked subscribe. And it just was, what happens is, I think what it is that the algorithms for YouTube already know what you're watching. So it just comes up, my content, but you never actually subscribe to the content. YouTube just suggests my videos for you to watch.
That's that deep machine learning.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it is dead on.
It is. It is dead on.
It's dead awesome. On. You know what I mean? Just like Amazon or eBay, it's like, hey, we think you'll be interested in this. I'm like, well, I actually
listen. When I it's so the funny thing I think I see it for, I know someone used my tablet, because if it starts suggesting different videos, I'm like, wait a second, who was on my tablet?
Even my Netflix. Or my
YouTube. I'm like,
especially if you mess with my YouTube, I'm like, my daughter hops on my.
That's what I was gonna say.
YouTube.
Like, my nieces or something. Like, all right, who's on my tablet? Because it starts suggesting all this like other stuff that I don't.
That's not my algorithms. Can't.
Yeah. So.
But in regards to that guy's question for price and proposals, you need to go to the GSA schedule labor rates. Okay, and there's any profession. I mean, electrician, level 1 through 4, electrical engineer 1 through 4. Level 1, there's this many requirements, this much years of education. 4 is a doctorate and 20 years experience. Okay, and they each have an hourly rate next to that profession. And then if you can't really pinpoint your profession, which is what is kind of difficult for me, you would just be, hey, subject matter expert, level 1 through 4. You know what I mean? And then there is a going labor rate per hour that's already set based off of how you meet the criteria. And remember, GSA is always going to be the high end. So if you're pricing a proposal, get the GSA scheduled labor rates right off the bat. That's how I do a lot of my government cost estimates, because I already know it's going to be the high end, and I'll still add another 10% or 15, 20% on, just because, like I said, it's not my profession, so I don't know. You know what I mean? If I get approved for this much, that's my dollar ceiling. So that's why probably that contract office is like, oh, you're still too expensive, because they got one quote, that was their government cost estimate, and it was super low because they didn't even describe the requirement correctly. And now, boom, that's like their median that they go off of to have a high and low, or like an acceptable price range. You know what I mean? So I always go GSA scheduled labor rates. I know they're going to be high, add 10% to it. So boom, that's my high end. And then you start doing your market research from there, which you're always going to be able to beat those prices, always. You know what I mean?
Nice.
That's just a great place to start, is like a benchmark, a high-end benchmark.
Right.
And you go medium to low.
Ryan, we're going to take a couple more questions. It's 8:16. Ryan and I have gone for a couple hours now. So.
Dang.
Yeah, I know. It just went so fast. So I'm gonna get Ryan off. Definitely, if you guys like this, if you like the session, like I said, give us a thumbs up. Leave your comments and questions in the box. I have Ryan's information. Also, what we may do, someone's already asked, he can't, if he could come on and do another session for the GovCon students, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to. Get your questions, gather them together, shoot us an email, and we can definitely have him at least have them ahead of time, so that way he kind of can be prepared for whatever things are going to come at him. But it doesn't seem like he cares, because he's pretty confident in what he does and his ability. So
I will say, hey, break it down into, services and supplies. What are you selling to the government?
Yeah.
And then there's,
Okay.
break it down just into very general, like construction. Here's how you
Right.
sell construction, or
Right.
here's how
Right.
you sell janitorial services, or logistic services, training services, or here I sell staplers, I sell paper, ink toner. You know what I mean? And I'll just tell you the best way to go about doing
Right.
it.
Right. Right.
For the buyer, for me, the easiest way how I would approach it to get it as quickly as humanly possible.
A couple, say some closing words for the people, and then we're gonna go ahead and sign off from you.
But yeah, I mean, hey, I'm happy to help anybody, especially small businesses. I'm opening my own business, as we speak, called Base Plus 4 Government Acquisition Solutions, and it's still, even for me right now, I'm on the government end, but then it's a whole other world when you're trying to, register in SAMs and start your own business. You have a whole nother, realm of bureaucracy to get through to even be able to get a chance at maybe winning a contract. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel your pain. It's not easy, but there's so much money you just would not believe. It's just the amount of money just I spend is outrageous. And I feel like if you're willing to jump through those hoops, like you're a small percentage of people who are even willing to do that. You know what I mean? And so if you keep at it, like you're gonna be okay eventually.
And again, as small business owners, there's so much that we don't know, right? And so any information that someone else that's in your kind of position could come on board and share and help, it's beneficial, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's beneficial.
Everybody, to the government and you.
Yeah. No, to me, I really believe that I'm providing a service to the government by doing what I do, because I'm preparing people because they're not going to the government wasting their time with how do I get registered? What do I do? I'm preparing these people to go to the government and speak intelligently, right? And then operate with ethically and on a high standard with excellence. And so again, we are sharing stories, tips, tricks. How do you do certain things? And like you said, especially now today with you coming on and saying, hey, let's suggest a different way of writing these requirements so that way we don't have to buy this twice.
Exactly. And here, like you'll be so good. I'll teach you so much. Like I will show you how to teach the government how to navigate through their own process to buy your product. Because a lot of
that's what I need to know.
They come to you and they're just like, we want you. Just how do we get it? And it's like,
no, Ryan. That's the next call. We got to talk about that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the next call. That's the next one. Ryan, listen, thank you so much, man, for coming on today. I'm gonna stay on a little bit and just talk to the folks out here, and then I'm gonna sign off myself, brother. But hey, it was a pleasure. Keep leaving the comments. Keep leaving the messages. Let us know what you think. If I told you before, if I could connect you with Jennifer, if you want to talk to her, I could definitely make that connection happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Ambar, the one that does the capture management.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll connect you. Send me an email. When you send me my email, my other stuff, and then I'll reply with.
Yeah.
All right, send me that, and then I'll reply, and then I'll push that out to everybody as well. I'll upload it to Dropbox and put a link in the description with that chart that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Sounds good, man. Thank you for having me on, Eric. Man,
thanks.
Look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate your time today, brother.
Thanks. You guys have a good night.
Everybody say bye to Ryan.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Dun, dun, dun. Let's get my thing up. All right. How'd you enjoy that session today with Ryan? Like I said, we are trying to have more and more people come on to the show, particularly on Thursday nights, where I can interview different professionals, give you guys advice, tips, things that can help everyone out there watching. So hopefully this was beneficial to some folks out there. Listen, again, oh, that's wonderful. So TMO said, Eric, I attended my first industry meeting today. Your course helped add credibility to the conversations. No, that's awesome, man. That's the whole thing, right? For me, what I like to say to people is if you can go in there, right, and not ask like just the dumb questions or the silly questions, then they're going to treat you with much more respect, and they're going to treat you differently. And like, wait a second, now they can start talking to you about what is, in fact, what is it that you do and how can we use you? And like what Ryan just said, if you can learn how to help the customers, right, buy your products, buy your services, man, you just made their life so simple, and they can keep coming back to you and back to you and back to you. So again, definitely we want to continue this conversation with Ryan and find out, how is it that we get the government, how do we help the government be able to buy our products and our services? And I especially want to share it with all the people who are listening to my channel and following my channel, because you guys that are subscribed to me, that are listening to me, are my people. So again, I want to get this information out to my people. Feel free to share this video with anybody who you think it can help benefit. We are not against each other. We are not, I know that a lot of small businesses feel like that they're trying to keep everything to themselves. But again, if I did that, then none of you would be here. None of you would know any of this information. So again, when you're out there in this world, you're operating, don't be hesitant or reluctant to give someone else the information. Share, share, share. If you know something that another small business doesn't know, help them out, share with them, okay? Please, because that's going to increase the capacity for all of us small businesses. We need to become united. We need to become one. We need to stand together to fight the big guys in the world, because they're already eating. We're the ones that are not eating. So I definitely want to close out and say those things, because it's just really important to me that this happens. And so I'm hoping that, again, I'm setting the example of giving first, right, and expecting without any expectations. But I know that the expectation is that something later on is going to happen. So again, I live by faith. I encourage you guys to live by faith. And I know that good things are going to happen for me by giving out this information freely and openly to all the people that want to listen. So again, awesome. Ryan had been like chatting and coming in on my messages and always like giving really deep, insightful comments. And I'm like, yo, I got to get this guy on the show one day. And so I asked Maria to reach out to him. He said yes. And we went from there. So again, lately we've been getting a lot of recognition for what we're doing. Maria's in DC. We sponsored the Women's Conference Today charity. And so the person that was like the platinum sponsor, she was one of my guests. Maria was giving us some good feedback on, she thought highly of me and us and what we were doing out here for the platform, for the community. And so again, I like to say, people that are on here, you guys know me. A lot of you guys are talking to me throughout the week, throughout the days, and you know how much time I'm putting into this, how much effort I'm giving it this for you guys out there. I'm spending my money, I'm spending my time. So I'm fully invested in this whole thing. So again, I don't want to work with anybody who's halfway vested, who's 1 foot in and 1 foot out the door. So again, if you're not all the way in, don't even reach out to me. Don't call me, don't text me, don't message me, nothing. Because I'm spending my time, my energy with people who are 100% in and involved. All right. So no, Ryan is not in the Facebook group yet. Demetrius, again, like I said, I just met him. And this was literally our first conversation that I had with Ryan. I've never talked to him before, never talked to him offline. This was the very first conversation I had, and he was willing to go live. So I'm like, yo, boom, let's go live. And so this was the very first conversation that him and I ever had together. But definitely we'll make sure if he's on Facebook or if he's on LinkedIn, I'll definitely plug him in, because he's going to be someone that we want to keep around. He's already a fan of the show, fan of the channel. As you can see, like I was saying earlier, that's how I met him, because he's constantly leaving really good feedback and comments. So I don't see it being a problem to get him on into any of the groups that we have available. But he already told me like he's willing to give out his information to anyone and share it. So Demetrius, I already know you and like you my people, so you're gonna get it. So then you ain't got to worry about it. You hit me up and I'll get you his information. So I'll make that available to you. All right. Hey guys, listen. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a couple hours. Sorry about the lengthiness of it, but it was just so much good information that I had to share. So, hey, thanks everybody. Have a good night.